The morning sun glinted off the tall glass windows of Arcton Holdings as if the entire building were watching, waiting, judging. And right there on the city sidewalk, clutching a worn backpack and a lunchbox with a peeling dinosaur sticker, stood a single dad who had already lived a lifetime of battles before most people even finished their coffee. Rowan Maddox breathed in a shaky breath while his 8-year-old son, Jace, tugged on his hand and asked if today would finally be the day things got better. Rowan wanted to tell him yes, he wanted to believe it, but he also knew what waited for him inside that building, a room full of people who had already decided he wasn't good enough because he was a mechanic walking into a corporate world, because he was a single father who had stopped dreaming of fairy tales, and because people like him were easy targets. If this moment grips your heart already, please take a second to like, comment, share and subscribe to Touch of Kindness, because stories of kindness and second chances deserve a home. Rowan wasn't supposed to be here. A week earlier, he had been working late at the small auto shop he managed when a suited stranger arrived, claiming the CEO herself wanted him to apply for a corporate fleet manager position. Rowan assumed it was a joke, maybe a prank by one of the richer clients. But the stranger insisted, and Rowan, still worrying about school fees and overdue rent, decided to at least show up. Maybe someone had heard of his reputation for honesty. Maybe it really was a chance. But as he stepped into the sleek marble lobby now, Rowan saw the smirks forming on the faces of the men waiting near the elevator. One of them, a tall guy with a crisp blue suit and slicked back hair, whispered something that made the others snicker. Rowan didn't need to hear it to know what it was. He had seen those looks every time someone learned he was raising a child alone. Every time someone heard he had once turned down college to care for a sick father. Every time someone realized he didn't come from money or polished worlds. Still, Rowan straightened his shoulders and walked forward. He was doing this for Jace. The office floor of Arcton Holdings looked like a world made of glass and confidence. People moved in sharp lines, laptops glowed, and on one end of the room the 3 suited men who had smirked downstairs, Wade, Preston, and Blake, waited like wolves dressed in professionalism. They were department leads, and rumor had it they treated new applicants like chew toys. They circled Rowan as soon as he stepped off the elevator, asking pointless questions, mocking the oil stains on his boots, pretending they couldn't understand how a grease man ended up here. Rowan felt heat rise in his face, but he stayed polite, answering calmly, refusing to shrink. Jace, sitting quietly in the lobby with a drawing book, didn't need to see his dad break today. What Rowan didn't know was that someone else was watching. On the highest floor, in an office trimmed with sunlight and quiet authority, CEO Mariska Vale reviewed a digital feed from the lobby. She had only approved one candidate this week, Rowan Maddox, after hearing how he ran an entire workshop alone for years without a single client complaint and had once given up his own paycheck to cover repairs for a struggling elderly couple. These were qualities she valued far more than degrees or suits. But she had also heard whispers that some team leads intended to teach him a lesson. Mariska's fingers tightened around her coffee cup as she zoomed in on Rowan's face. She expected nervousness. She did not expect quiet strength, or the protective way he glanced back at his son, or the exhaustion he carried like a permanent shadow. She decided to go down herself. Rowan was following the 3 men into a glass meeting room when the air shifted. The door opened and everyone stood straighter. Mariska Vale entered with a calm, controlled presence that made people feel they had suddenly stepped out of line, even when they hadn't. She was in a crisp cream blouse, her dark hair tied into a sleek knot, her amber eyes focused with intent. But when she looked at Rowan, her expression softened. Only slightly, but enough that Wade and the others exchanged wary glances. "This is Mr. Maddox, I assume?" Mariska said, her voice smooth but firm. Rowan swallowed. "Yes, ma'am. Thank you for inviting. I'll conduct this interview myself." The 3 men stiffened. This was not standard. Mariska turned to them with a brief, cool smile. "Gentlemen, you may return to your work. I'm sure you have plenty." They left, faces tight with frustration. Inside the meeting room, Rowan felt like he had stepped into a calmer universe. The sunlight was warm on the table. Mariska sat across from him, hands laced, posture perfect, eyes studying, not judging, him. She asked about his experience, his values, the shop he ran, the challenges he faced as a single parent. Rowan answered honestly, sometimes stumbling over words because he wasn't used to impressing executives. But Mariska listened intently, not out of duty, out of genuine interest. He told her about losing his father, about trying to raise Jace while working double shifts, about sleeping only a few hours each night. He confessed he didn't know if he belonged in a place like this. Mariska's voice softened. "Belonging isn't determined by where you come from, it's determined by what you bring." Rowan felt something loosen inside him, something he had clenched tight for years. But Wade, Preston and Blake were not done. When Mariska stepped out to speak to HR, they cornered Rowan again near the hallway. They made snide remarks about him being the charity candidate and hinted that the CEO was just entertained by the mechanic with a sob story. Rowan clenched his fists, breathing hard, willing himself not to react. Just then, a small voice cut through the tension. "Dad? They're being mean to you?" Jace stood there holding his drawing book, his big brown eyes wide with concern. Wade scoffed. "This is why single dads don't belong here." He didn't finish. Mariska's voice sliced through the space like ice on glass. "Is there a problem?" The men paled instantly. Mariska stepped between Rowan and the three leads. "If I ever witness my staff treating an applicant, or any human being, like this again, your positions will be re-evaluated. Immediately." Her tone was low, calm, lethal. Arcton was built on integrity. "If you cannot uphold that, you are welcome to resign." They mumbled apologies and vanished down the hall. Mariska turned to Rowan and Jace, her expression softening like sunrise breaking through frost. "Are you both all right?" Rowan nodded, but his voice cracked. "Thank you." Something in Mariska shifted at that moment. Maybe it was the vulnerability in his voice, or the way he shielded his son behind him without thinking, or how he fought humiliation with dignity. Whatever it was, the CEO who never let emotions interfere with business felt something, a pull she hadn't expected. She invited Rowan to wait in her office while HR processed paperwork. Jace played quietly near the window while Rowan tried to understand what was happening. Mariska asked him questions that had nothing to do with work. What Jace liked to draw, what they did on weekends, what Rowan wanted for his future. The more they talked, the more she found herself drawn to his sincerity. There was no pretense, no arrogance, just a man who had weathered storms most people never saw. When the official offer came, a full-time contract with benefits, Rowan was speechless. Jace ran to him, hugging him tightly, tears shining in his eyes. But the real shift came over the next few weeks. Rowan worked with dedication, learning quickly, earning respect through effort rather than titles. Even the team leads who mocked him grew quiet when they realized he wasn't there to compete. He was there to contribute. Mariska found reasons to visit the fleet department more often, offering guidance, sharing coffee, asking Rowan's opinion on little things. Their conversations stretched longer. Her smiles grew warmer. For Rowan, it was confusing. He had spent so long surviving that he forgot what it felt like to be seen. Not pitied, not judged, but seen. Mariska treated him with a kindness he hadn't received in years, and a tiny part of him, one he thought had died, began to hope. One afternoon, after a successful company event, Rowan found himself alone with Mariska on the building terrace. The city glowed below them.